Hola humanos, welcome to our ipsicafé scoping series where we take an idea and scope it live in real time, 1 hour at a time. My name is Alejandra, I am a strategist and community organizer, and we also have...
I am Lisa Lee, and I am a project strategy and a system thinker.
So the idea that we are scoping today is creating a blueprint that allows us to intentionally build and interweave our networks so we can strengthen our communities and more effectively translate that people power into structural change-making power.
Yes, so to have a recap from the few weeks since we started with a general brainstorming with the bubbles method that we use. That is a free flow of ideas. We use the 5W&H, which is the 5 questions that starts with W, who, where, when, who, and where, and the H, how, to help us ask questions. And last week we started categorizing, which is grouping the elements according to sharing a characteristic. This is part of the brainstorming process. The brainstorming continues. And so far we have 3 categories, and that are humans, areas of interest, and core values and foundation. And important to emphasize that the categories, we create the names that come to mind at the beginning, don't get stuck in the name. The things will evolve and fall into place eventually. And today and the following weeks, we will continue building upon what we already have built.
Cool. Thank you for that recap, Lizzie. So today we're, like Lizzie said, we're going to continue working on these categories, trying to find the connections between the different bubbles we've identified so far. And as we always start, we're going to put our starting time at the top left. We already have the date on there, and let's say use your local time, Lizzie. So 11:02 in the morning.
11:02 Pacific time. So I'm going to put it here, 11:02.
While Lizzie's doing that, just a reminder, we always keep the purpose at the top left of our brainstorming document because it keeps us focused, and it also helps us redirect the conversation when we go off, inevitably, as we do, when we go off on tangents.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead, Lizzie.
Questions that for any asynchronous meeting, can you see this screen?
Huh?
Can you see the screen?
The screen is showing. What do you mean?
Can you see it? Can you see the...
Me, my person?
My screen.
No,
bubbles.
I can't see your screen, but I can see the whiteboard, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to continue then with the categorization. We don't do this necessarily in order like humans, and we're going to look for all the humans. We could, but if another category comes to mind, like, oh, we saw interest, and then we can start generating different categories. And at some point, categories can merge or can split. The important thing is that this resonates with every person on every project that is being managed. So I am thinking here for core values, that is the last one that we were working, and again we can bring areas of interest to or humans, but I see one non-negotiables. This is part of core values, and
I think value alignment, right, to 7 o'clock of non-negotiables would also fall into that.
7 o'clock
from negotiables, just like down and to the left, directly right next to that.
And this one? Oh, sorry. Yes, I saw it. I was looking like way below. Perfect. Yes. some category that is jumping to mind is a different category. It is like characteristics of individuals or groups that could, so like religion, culture, emotional intelligence, group dynamics, that could be a different category, right?
Well,
That
I think to me, or at least the way I see it, tell me what you think. All of that kind of, I group that with, in a way, what we have right now as areas of interest. We would have to adjust the name because I think that those areas are points of gathering. They are reasons why people gather. People gather because of their religion. They gather because of their interests. They gather because of the industry they work in or the sector that they participate in. They gather because of culture, geography, that kind of thing. So I see those as and this is one of the ways the names that we begin with start evolving, because religion is not necessarily an area of interest,
right?
But it is that point of reference around how communities form. So now we'd probably change that. Green is going to be, I don't know, gather points around which we gather. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as it evolves with the category.
Yeah, before I change it, let's continue thinking about it and maybe come with a.
I think just add right now just points. Points of gather, just to keep the gathering part, because I think the gathering part is important.
Yeah, and it could be, like commonality and oops. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I helped. Just move over there. But
thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm going to go through. I think communities could be green as well, because it is, that is essentially what green is. It's different. It's like communities.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes a bubble could be like the overarching bubble. And we have found out that in many cases, like
exactly, that'll be the title.
That green probably could be communities. Now that that you saw it with that lens.
And I think identity and disability could also fall into that for now, because there are identity-driven communities and disability. Around disability as well.
And I like to bring an example of that, which always can trigger ideas. I'm a runner and I belong to a running club. And every year within the running clubs are clubs different, for identities or for disabilities. Like there's a blind runners club. So this is really interesting because it is not that there's no room for others, but there's a special need of a group to have like a subcategorization of a community per se, that is the running community.
I was talking to someone the other day, and they were working on a project together, and they talked about how they wanted this project to be very community focused, but they felt that community was becoming like a buzzword, that it was losing its meaning, and that maybe, that there was maybe too many offers that could be representative of community. And it made me think of how, I don't think there is anything that could be said that is like too much community. I think humans will always find community. We are social creatures and are constantly creating community with our family, with our neighbors, with our peers, with our colleagues, with whatever it might be, around all of these areas that we're starting to identify in green. And I think the more community we can create or strengthen, the better. This isn't something that's scarce, that is, oh, there's only so many communities we can create.
Right.
I have a whole bunch of different communities. I have, around my neurodivergence, there are groups of people that I can talk to about my experience with neurodivergence and existing in a primarily neurotypical world. And that is something that I'm not going to be able to do with my crochet circle at the yarn store around the corner, because it's a completely different space, but they all have their purpose. And I think that is true for everybody. Right. Yeah. So I think as we can keep building community, it is not a scarce kind of mentality. It's always, I think, a positive. It's value added. Whether it's, to community, you can take space, you can make space, you can find community with someone if it already exists, and if you don't find it, you can also create a community. So let's see what else.
Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking, in looking at this, these elements, yeah. I see that there are some that are like operational, if you will, like for example, skills bank or database or resources, processes, shared definitions, like things that are going to be like the foundation, that establish like how does this blueprint operate, if you will. It's not the right word, right? Because we want to build a blueprint, not so.
Yeah, maybe we can just start with blueprint components. Maybe start thinking about it like that.
And I'm gonna put so I don't forget. I'm gonna call it. Let's see what color.
Let's go with blue.
I was gonna use blue. Now I'm looking for the blue. Oh, where is the blue? I don't know where's the blue. Maybe I'll leave you. I am not doing this right, so if you can take that from me, and can you do that?
What do you mean? Put the blue?
Oh, you don't have.
No, yeah. I can do that. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it. So you said blueprint. And I'm going to put here like in parentheses. And again, this is because this is the first category name that came to mind to Ale. The blueprint for me is like the operational. So I'm going to put it so I don't forget exactly what operational elements.
What do you mean by operation? Just to expand on that word in terms of...
Are the things that are required to... I mean, if we have here skills bank, that's something like it's an operative. Maybe it's operative more than operational. Or processes. What processes do we have? Or we have a database. If we do, we have tools. Those kind of things are going to help us to manage the blueprint, if you will, or to establish the foundations of the blueprint.
Okay.
In the sense of operations. So you have the blue. Did you put it?
I'm working on it.
Thank you. I don't know. I think I grabbed the wrong pencil. Thank you very much. And there's a dot there. So
it's fine. I might make it a little lighter because it's a bit dark.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's better. And then you can use that to cover the...
Yes.
Yeah, you know.
So processes, skills bank, database, tools, communication styles, coordinating. I'm just starting. Just feel free to.
Yeah, I'm always have to remind myself of trying to think of what we're using to create the blueprint and what we're using as like a component of the blueprint. So I'm just going through that in my head of...
I think they are components of the blueprint, right? Because all of them are going to be part of the blueprint, right? So these are components of the blueprint. that will allow us to create this or interweave this network.
So for example, do you see buy-in as part of that, or are you talking more about specific tools? Because communication styles is on there, which made me think, is buy-in also in there, or is that perhaps something different?
Yeah, it could be. Same with skills and resources. So because we want to create a blueprint as a way to build and interweave our networks, right? So if we stop right there,
Mm-hmm.
blueprint, a way to build. How do we build it, right? So we have these yellow categories that are we build it with humans. We have these green categories like points of others. We build it under these particular core values. We build it with these tools and processes and communication styles and buy-in so that everybody's in sync, because the buy-in goes for everything, right? For humans, there's a human buy-in there.
But I think right there, you just shifted from talking about the project of developing the blueprint, because you were talking about, right? Because you were talking about the humans that we were going to, when we talk about change makers and community organizers and who's already doing this, that is in a way going to inform this blueprint, right?
Yes.
Yet the blue, I believe you were talking about it more as this will be part of the output. This will be part of that kind of blueprint, right? Or were you just thinking about it in developing the blueprint? I know it can get,
I think there's an overlap. I think it is to develop a blueprint. I mean, because when you have the blueprint,
because that's the output of this project, right? Of this scoping series in particular, is at the end of this timeline, we create something that we're going to call a blueprint to interweave our networks or to support kind of that strategic community building.
right.
So do you see this as do you see blue as part of the output or as part of the process of developing that output, or both? They're both valid.
I think it's more of an output that will help to build it, right? And I know.
What do you mean an output that will help to build it? Because the output is it being built.
Right. It is an output so that when you start using your blueprint, you have that foundation.
Right? Okay, so it is part of the blueprint. Perfect.
It is part of the blueprint.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it is confusing because, we're doing the blueprint, but we are thinking also on how we're going to manage, right? The blueprint. How
exactly.
Right.
Okay. So these will be components of the actual blueprint, of something that needs to be taken into consideration when you want to strengthen community, or when you want to strategically interweave, right?
Right. Because you, for example, if we go to the communication styles is very, very tied to the culture, the affinities, the religions. You have to have that as part of that blueprint. You have to have something, a process or something that helps with that blueprint. Same with the skills bank, right? What do I have? What do I need? Like if there's a community for particular identity, you want to what skills are out there that will help with this blueprint. And it is both. I mean, because this is, and probably, I don't know, maybe I'm going to start thinking of something how to map these two things. Like, I love Venn diagrams, as you know. So it is like, this is the building of the blueprint, and this is, now we are going to use the blueprint. What is the intersection between the two? That would be interesting, but that's for another subject. So what else do you see? Do you see languages as part of the blue?
I see languages more as a part of green.
Green.
One thing that I want to mention, because it was one of the most recent tangible examples of this interweaving, I want to make it clear that this isn't like a novel thing that, no one in humanity has interwoven networks. I think precisely because it's people do this everywhere, and it's incredibly effective. Precisely because of that is that I'm interested and curious in figuring out a way that we can replicate it, but replicate it within our context. So not sort of cookie cutter solutions, but specifically in our context. What is it that we can identify from these examples that that is in common, and what can we do? Where do we leave flexibility to adapt from our specific context? So that earlier today, I joined a labor call, a labor event, and it was a global call. So there were over 300 participants on this call, and it was organized by women garment workers. And the amount of organizing, the amount of connection and common purpose and alliance that they've built across the globe is inspiring. So I think that one of the things that I was really impressed by was that they had live interpretation in, I think, 10 plus languages. So that allowed all of these hundreds of participants to engage not only as speakers in the language that they were most comfortable with, but also as listeners. So that was one example, and why I see languages, it can be part of that organization. I might not have the religion in common with someone from Colombia, but because I speak Spanish, we can organize. We have that commonality around which we could organize or interweave. So I just wanted to give that example just because I was on that call just a couple of hours ago, and it was really beautiful to see just kind of that organization really in real time. So.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that you mentioned is that when you start looking at these systems and all the possibilities that are out there, you expand your perspective, right? I went to an event maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it was about disability writers and how they have to carve their space to write books as people with disabilities. Curiously so, there was no sign language there, which I found it like, wow, it was not like, I am privileged having all my senses, but when you start having that perspective that we are not, just because we have all the 5 senses doesn't mean that we are the perfect ones and the others are not. And then you start looking like with that empathy, right? Like,
yeah, you start noticing who's not in the room, even when those who are not in the room don't look like you or believe the way you do. You start noticing that they're not there. And I think that's really important. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and when I did comment that to the organizers, which were diversity, equity, and inclusion, they told me, "Oh, I didn't think about that." So it was just like that. You have it here, like multiplier effect. The multiplier effect goes every way, right? So anything that we learn, even we don't need it, but we know that there's a need, we also have it like here, the identification of needs. Those things are like what this community or this blueprint can help with. And one thing that I want to mention too, that there's no right or wrong on the categories. The categories have to resonate with the people building their network, right? So it's just like what maybe like you have seen, languages could be languages part of the communication styles, or really, no, it's more like the green and the gray, the example that you just brought. So it is important that there are many ways to build it. Everybody will build it different ways. As you have mentioned, it had existed for centuries. People have organized in their communities, millennia. So it is seeing the importance of the organization. If you see Minneapolis, the success of the community was huge 2 months ago, right? Because they were very well organized. So, okay.
Yeah, let's see. Let's look at, I think maybe if we go to 3 o'clock on the bubble, blueprint as a map, do you think
Mhm.
that could be blue? Like we could start
That
shaping
could be
blue
blue.
around that?
Yes. And another thing that I was looking for, I don't know if this would be um, research or for example, we have similar methods. We have this blueprint as a board game or blueprint as a decision tree. Those could be blue because it
I
would
think
be
yeah.
maybe
Yeah, because they were part of that same kind of brainstorm where,
right.
so I think I would put them in blue.
And similar methods as well, because that would be like an output with experiences or what? How do you see that? Like, same with existing system structures, institutions.
Mm, yeah, I'm not sure. I think, I mean, I think it can be part of other things, but I think it can definitely be part of blue in the sense of we want to make sure that as we are building our communities or strengthening our communities or interweaving our communities, that we're not reinventing the wheel, as can be said. We're not doing work that has been done. So I think looking at similar methods or perhaps similar approaches, I don't know if there might be a different bubble somewhere around about that, but it's it's really, really helpful to find models that have worked. And as we said at the beginning of this, because we're social creatures, we've gathered and organized, and for the span of our existence, we are unable to survive alone, no matter what people want to believe, because even those who sort of extract themselves from society are still dependent on the management of water, the management of resources, and other matters that impact their system, as removed and self-sustaining as people would like to believe that they are. None of us can survive alone. So I think
Unless that you are like a person that is in the mountain and doesn't relate to society at all. That's very
I
rare.
still don't think that even those people, because there are so many, there are decisions that are made about the climate, about protection of forests, about things like that, that can impact or benefit or hurt those people. They are still part of, we're all on this kind of
Or
like,
it's just, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
we're all here. So it is connected, I think, in all ways. So I think looking at where things have done, what has worked, that is aligned with thinking about it within the blueprint, that is aligned with whoever would be employing this. And then existing systems, structures, and institutions, I think, need to be understood in order to have effective approaches to change. I think it's very difficult to change systems when we think they are, it's different changing a broken system than it is changing a system that's working as designed. So I think it's important to know what system you're dealing with and whether it's broken or working as designed when we're figuring out the approach that we're going to have. So I think those two are good in blue.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, and I put those and what have others done. And I'm gonna jump a little bit here to, for example, we have a shared reality, shared understanding, shared definition, shared motivations. And I wonder if that would be core values or foundation.
I was thinking
Um,
actually green, but I'm happy to have a discussion about that. Just because, oh, I don't know. I think the shared understanding, yeah, on core values, on foundation. I think I do agree with that. What were the other two that you mentioned?
I mentioned I mentioned the shared reality that is above shared understanding. I mentioned then close to 530 is shared definitions and shared motivations. Shared definitions I see more like as a blue,
Same.
because it's part of the communication styles, right?
Shared reality I see as a green.
Shared
because
reality, yeah.
because it's a point to gather. It might be you might have nothing in common with a group of people other than the fact that you are sharing a reality. So in that sense, I see it within that. Shared understanding, I would put in purple.
Shared understanding, yeah, okay, yeah, because
That needs to be the foundation. There needs to be, I
right.
don't know. It could also be blue, but
Yeah,
but
I would
we'll.
like to keep it like in the core values
No, I
because
think it's good. I
it's,
think it's good.
yeah.
I think trust as
And how
well.
about, say that again?
I think trust, purple as well.
Trust, trust, trust.
It's right under value alignment. Yeah.
And how about shared motivations? That would be green.
I think green. Yeah. Let's see what else.
We have resources and labor. I don't remember exactly what we wanted with the labor. What do you remember?
I think in
resources.
skills, labor, and resources, I think when I put those down, so there is, I work with a critique and a framework called Critique and Promise that takes into consideration the different spheres of influence that we have. And at the very core, very initial layer being the individual level of influence. So before we look at where we have influence outside of ourselves, we need to recognize that we have influence over ourselves, what we know, what we do, how we spend our time, that kind of thing. So in thinking about it in the organizing context, one place that I think it's really good to start when people are trying to get involved in contributing to a collective effort, but they might not know how, is to look at your resources, and not just in terms of money, but in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of in how you're spending that. Your skills, what skills do you have? How are you spending? Where are you lending those skills? The labor that you do, where do you do it? Why do you do it there? Some of these are not choices that we have, depending on our circumstances. So I think a lot of it, this is looking at, if you want to, like I mentioned, contribute to a collective effort but don't know where to start, looking at how you are spending your resources, your labor, and your skills, where you're lending that is a good place to start, to then see not only what you could lend to the collective, but how much you have to lend to the collective as well, once you meet your basic needs and that of your kind of dependence. So I would put that in the blue, because I think that is part of that blueprint of figuring out how you even, go about building community. And this can happen both if you are involved and engaged in the community, but want to figure out how to do so perhaps more strategically, or thinking about it in terms of making change, actively participating, that kind of thing. Which I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do know I've encountered plenty of people who just don't know where to start. I think looking at ourselves and how we're spending our time, how we're spending our resources is really good. It's a really good starting point to kind of figuring out where we want to be involved, or where we can be involved.
Yeah, and one thing that I don't know if we have mentioned that last week is that there are some bubbles that could be in more than one category, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But we take what we think is the prime category. And sometimes it will be depending on the question, right? It could be in two categories with a different question. So it is important to keep that in mind. That's what I mentioned. There's no right or wrong. It's what resonates more. And if you have like a rationale, Alejandra just went through the skills, the resources, the labor with the rationale, and it talks to her that way. So that's what I asked for, what we really meant with this when we created this bubble. So it is important. And this is where the critical thinking comes to play. So that we are not just putting here like throwing spaghettis to the wall to see if they stick. It is just like something has a meaning for the end purpose, which is a blueprint. a way to build and interweave our networks.
Speaking of, I would say at 12 o'clock, knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing is also a really important part of interweaving these networks, being able to relay knowledge, to share knowledge, to teach is an incredible way to to build community, to strengthen community, and then to grow.
Do you see it as a foundation, or
no, I see it more as blue.
As a blue.
Like it's the reality of kind of interweaving and strengthening.
Okay. And another thing that is, we have done this for so many years, and we realize that sometimes when a category is really heavy, then we think like, okay, we may need to break this in two, because the purpose is to ensure that the categories talk to each other and that every element has a commonality for the grouping. And it is, I'm going to bring an example, like underwear. So we have a drawer with underwear and socks and pajamas, because we call it. But then if we have too many socks, I mean, the socks probably, the underwear category is too large, and then we break it like in types of underwear. So it's something important. I don't know if that was the best example. I don't think it was.
No, I think that worked great.
So it is like, oh, we have here.
You need a new drawer. So it might be that blue gets processed a little more later, but
that's what I'm thinking, because if I see group dynamics, you could think, okay, group dynamics of the humans, but no, humans, we are talking about specific people. We are talking about academics. Who are the people? Who is doing this?
Well, and because that's the difference, though, right there is humans right here is referring as the creating of the blueprint.
Creating of the blueprint. I'm gonna put that.
So here. I think that is a slight but important shift in kind of the purpose. That I guess, we have blueprint, a way to build and interweave networks, and in the other text we have creating a blueprint. So I think that makes it more tangible that the output is the blueprint. And I think the yellow is who we're going to work with to develop this blueprint. Whereas the blue is going to be part of kind of that output. But I do agree at some point, the thing that I was going to say is this is essentially at its most basic. The bubble tool is a way to gather and process information. So right now, that's why this can be done. Every brain will do this differently, and they're all valid ways to do it, because it's just making sure that the information is grouped and compared to other information. And as we move through this process, we will, once we're done with the categories, we'll look. Lizzie does it differently, and this is a great example of how this approach adapts to each brain. But I personally I'll grab all the green bubbles and make its own bubble, and then try to identify categories within, because that really helps, exactly as you were saying, so this blue category obviously has categories within it. So that's how I continue processing the information. So in the weeks to come, we'll continue doing that.
Yes. Yeah, so, and I really do like a lot how you do it, and actually we have an output of not of the blueprint, but of the process, and that is called the WBS, the work breakdown structure. And for me, this is something that falls, we call like a low-hanging fruit. I mean, pretty much all this process will take me to create that structure. And I have been building them now with this process that Ali has, like, she takes a bubble and there's a green bubble, and then you can kind of reflect more on every element and every category. And then you can say, oh, no, really, this goes now to another one, or this, you can break this into, etc. So it is, again, all our brain. And it is interesting because, with all the AI talk that is out there in 90% of the places that you go, if not more, I see that this is, because this is human connection. There's human connection here. This is something that it has to resonate with every one of you. I mean, with every person that is doing this. it's not a template. It is a blueprint that we're building, but it's based on.
I mean, it'll kind of be a template.
It is a template, but it's not a template that you just copy and paste and just do, and because it has different value for different groups of communities. There are so many elements that come into play that are related to the human connection that you cannot just say this is it, right? Because then you will go to these groups that have different affinities and it will not work if there's not the analysis, the what, where, when, why, who, and how are related to that network of people. So that's important. So I am reading the things are left.
Yeah, I just, as a note, I put primary project deliverable as visual in blue, right above academics, because, it's kind of falling into this blue bubble seems to be everything that's going to be kind of the output of this project, and then we'll continue processing it.
Where is it? Where is that?
11 o'clock from academics. Academics is in yellow, lower right.
Academics in the middle. Oh, 11 o'clock?
From academics.
Oh. I'm looking at 11 o'clock. Okay, 11 o'clock. Okay. See the different ways to communicate. So, okay. Primary project deliverable as a visual. Yes. And how do you see all the, for example, problem identification?
Yeah, I don't know why that came up for initially. I think we need a category that that has to do with the development
of
the blueprint. Just thinking at the 10 AOKs and scope at like 6:30.
Yes, I'm gonna put it here. Sorry, and this. How about this? No, this is orange. How about these oranges? Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
And this is development.
Yeah, like blueprint.
So for that, we will have this.
Exactly. And I think problem identification, I kind of see it as in part this. And the reason for that is that, as we were talking about earlier, we know that this happens all the time. We know that it's incredibly effective every time that it's done with intention and strategically. Like maybe not every time, but it's very effective being strategically organized. So I'm interested to see or to try to figure out what is missing in making it more accessible. So I think that's why I was perhaps considering project identification or problem identification as orange, because I don't know what the problem is, because there are models. We've seen it throughout our lifetime. So what is it the accessibility? Is it the, what it is that we're facing when we're doing that? What is it about it that so many people I feel like I encounter don't have access to? They don't know how to organize. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to engage actively and intentionally. So I think on that end, problem identification I would put there. I know problem identification can be a lot of things, and it can also be part of blue, but just share my thoughts there.
Yeah, so if we go back, I'm going to go back to the category of blueprint development. Okay, now we have a bunch of elements here are the foundations, and now we are going to develop the blueprint, right? So what do we need to develop this blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to understand for the ones that don't know, the areas of knowledge, this comes from Project Management Institute, that is an international organization based in the United States originally, that has established standards to manage projects, and they have these 10 areas that we keep them always in sight, because it's everything that you do for any project. Some you don't have. Maybe you have a project that is free, you don't need money or anything, you don't have to do cost, but you have a scope. What is it? You have a timeline, you have some budget, you have what is the quality, what resources are helping to that, what risks, communications, etc. So these 10 areas of knowledge is like something that you are when you're building a project. And the problem identification is kind of the first step. What problem are we trying to solve, right? In this case, we're having a blueprint, but now that we are going to develop a blueprint for a particular organization or for something, that would be, I would agree. But I don't know if we go in that line, it would be also the identification of needs, it would be the time zones, it would be availability, collaboration, because that's what you will need now to develop that blueprint, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think time availability, I was thinking more in part in blue. But it's and yeah, it's hard because then blue is growing. Which is not necessarily a problem, but just in trying to separate.
And why and again, these are two different things. This is the availability of the resources to.
No, people's availability. When I talk about it in blue, I talk about it in if you have a specific goal that you're trying to achieve, if there's a reason you're trying to interweave the communities, because like I said, this could be because you are existing alone in the world and want to figure out how to build community. But it could also be that you have built community but want to be able to interweave across time zones, for example, in order to have a stronger alliance. And in order to achieve that, you need to know what the people involved, what their availability is. You can only create realistic goals when you know, well, no, I can only realistically do a couple of hours a week. I'm going to take on a different task than if I'm full-time available and I can put in 8 hours a day. So in that sense, I was thinking about it in terms of being part of the blueprint, is that when we're organizing, when we're trying to figure out what it is that we are, what changes we're trying to make, achieve, accomplish in whatever structure that we're looking at, knowing the people involved, what the availability is, helps create realistic goals.
Okay. Yeah, and it is okay if it's growing, because when we go to the next step after we have the categories, we can either break it down or we can have two subcategories within the blue. That's perfectly fine.
For sure.
So, and I just saw one that I would like about the safe spaces. I think that's a core value, because that's something it's a non-negotiable. We want to have safe space. We want the blueprint has to have as a foundation that there are safe spaces for everybody.
Well, for the people that you want to involve, at the very least.
Yeah, that's what that's the people. Well, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it falls under purple. I think purple, I like the foundation. Again, trying not to get stuck in the title core values, but it is kind of I like the term foundation. Because if you're not creating a space that is safe for people to engage in, it's very difficult to grow a community out of that. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone needs to be welcome in that space, or that everyone needs to be protected in that space. But the people that you are focusing on, your community or whatever community that is the focus of that, those people need to be at the center of that space. They need to be protected, and they need to feel like they are in a place that's safe. So
Okay, so for this one, the formats of interaction, virtual, I see that as part of the development, and these are some that come out of these areas of knowledge. If I'm reading that right, so you will have how is going to be the interaction in the group, and the same thing with the group dynamics as a little bit part of the resources.
but when you mean about the development, that is our work, you and I. So the formats of interaction, I don't see that as much. I see that more as part of Blue, in the sense that, again, in terms of making,
It's the operativity. Yeah, it's the operation.
in terms of making your, whatever it is, the messaging or the labor or the points of action that you're gathering around or that you're operating under, what is, and for the group that is the focus, is it better to meet in person? Is it safer? Or is it safer to meet virtually? What is people's availability, and what does that mean for, maybe we don't have synchronous communications because we can't always coordinate, but we can create an asynchronous sort of virtual space where people can go get information and kind of engage on their own time. So I think I see it more as the operational reality of putting this blueprint into practice. How do you see it?
I like that word. Yeah, and this is a little bit like when things happen, and I love the example that is happening. That it seems, even if we have done it hundreds of times, and there's always these things that overlap, or that could be one or the other, or both. Actually, I like it. I like it that it comes up to see, like, oh, okay, this is, it's not like it's, we put the colors and done, right? It has that critical thinking of why we're putting things of different ways. And what I am trying to think, and I am getting ahead of myself, is how to break this, but that would be separate.
Yeah, maybe when we look at each category specifically, we can do that. I think how they're doing it, which is the only bubble without a color on the bottom right, I think that would be orange, because that question was, how are the yellows, or the organizers, change makers, people who are already actively, effectively strengthening their communities and interweaving them across different areas, how are they doing that? I think that's central to this orange.
And how about what others done? And that's why they said could be both, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Where do you see it more?
Well, see, this is the thing. If you are, that's your method of choosing one over the other. My method is putting both colors. So if you want to make a choice, I think that's going to fall on you.
So yeah, so what?
Isn't it easier to replicate that one and change the color?
I know.
Okay, let me see. There's one category that I see that it's that we haven't looked at. Yes.
Sorry, I am playing here. So this is what the method that Alejandra, so she does this. So that way you can, okay, I have two, because on one I'm going to evaluate it with a different lens, and on the other for a different purpose. So,
yeah, and this allows me to think about that later. I can move on, and I can just document that these two came up with both of these, and I don't have to, sometimes it's fine. You have the time and the energy to look into that right now, but sometimes I'm very easily distracted. So this is how I can make note of these fall into these two categories, and later I can look at where they fall in best, or what that means for each category. But one thing I was going to say is, because we have just a few minutes, One last category that I don't know what to call that I want to mention is when I look at the bubbles, exclusion, competitiveness, underrepresentation, these seem like they have something in common that is not anything we've identified. But I don't have a particular word for it. But I just wanted to bring it up.
In them all common, why?
Huh?
You see them common in what sense?
I think that they are issues that come up when it comes to effectively organizing. It's that we can be, as humans, we can be competitive and we can alienate because, there's this idea that progress has to be sequential per each of these green areas, that we first need to, quote unquote, gain rights as a religion or as a woman or as a queer person or as a disabled person. And I just disagree that this is necessary. Liberation does not require this sequential model. So I think competitiveness, the exclusion, I think takes that idea that, well, only if I align here am I going to get this access. I don't think is helping with the kind of that idea of interweaving and effectively building community. And the underrepresentation, again, in many spaces that are already organized, there is underrepresentation of certain groups, which inevitably weakens it. We all have something to share. We all have something to contribute. Wherever we are, with what we have, we can contribute to the spaces that we take part in. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And all of our spaces are stronger when we broaden, again, as long as there is kind of that shared understanding, that shared motivation that we're gathering around. Having broader representation strengthens the different movements. So thank you. For now, it's just a gray category that will...
Yeah, it's a gray category, so I put it there and I put a question mark because this is perfectly valid. We don't have the answer at the moment, but there is something. And taking space, you agree that would be there too, right?
I'm not sure, but I think that'll be perfect to pick up the conversation next week. I just recognizing that we have a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and transition off of the whiteboard. So in a few minutes, we'll give it an end to the live stream. It will continue next Tuesday. It will be April 7th, same time, same place. That is 8 p.m. in the Netherlands and 11 a.m. in the West Coast of the United States and somewhere in between everywhere else in the world. For anyone looking for support on their specific idea or their project or their strategy that they're working on, we offer free office hours every week. There is a link in the description to sign up, either with Lizzie or with me. We're planning our first ipsicafé special event towards the end of the year. I'm really excited about that, starting to put that structure together. You can follow our LinkedIn pages, also linked in the description, to keep up to date on that. Is there anything you'd like to say, Lizzie, before we end the live stream?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for us to do this. And we'll bring that next week with something that is called Play is Planning. And it is something that I learned last week that I want to bring it.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone get some rest y hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Ciao.